A spark out of place. 40,000 Warhammer. This is a story about a spark. Not the holy kind that ignites faith, but the wrong kind. A spark born from error, drifting through sanctified air where nothing is allowed to go wrong. In the Imperium, even a spark can kill. It began in Manufactorum Delta Primus, where the air always smelled of burning incense and molten metal. The machines were ancient, older than the city itself, their spirits temperamental and proud. Tech Adept Soria worked beneath the chanting pipes, her voice hoarse from years of reciting the hymn of maintenance. Every motion, every tool, every word, sacred ritual. That day, something felt off. The pressure gauges trembled, the lights flickered. A faint buzz rose from the plasma conduits. She paused her chant and adjusted a valve, whispering, "Be calm, machine spirit. Be still," but then, snap. A single blue spark leapt from her tool, small and almost beautiful. It should have died out instantly. Instead, it danced in the air, hovering, flickering, as if alive. The servo skulls turned toward it. The machine hum deepened, shifting from harmony to static. The spark drifted upward, touching the nearest conduit. A blinding surge filled the hall. The lights went out. Then came the screaming, not human, but mechanical. When the backup systems flared on, the walls were covered in burn marks shaped like veins. The cogitator screens flashed with red script. Unsanctioned energy detected. Soria fell to her knees. Her hand, the one that held the tool, was blackened. She could still feel the spark under her skin, crawling, whispering. The Magos arrived hours later, his bionic eyes scanning the scene. He didn't ask questions. He simply ordered, "Purge the sector." They burned everything, the machines, the data, even the air filters. But the spark wasn't gone. In the next sector, a worker reported seeing a flicker of blue light dart across the vents. They say it still wanders the Manufactorum, a spark without prayer, a lost fragment of the Omnissiah's wrath, waiting for another tool, another hand, another mistake. A spark born from error, drifting through sanctified air where nothing is allowed to go wrong. In the Imperium, even a spark can kill. I am Tech Adept Soria of Manufactorum Delta Primus, line 77. I sign the litany slate with a hand that has more scars than rings. I keep the machines breathing. We don't fix them here. We pray them into motion. Morning is a bell, a hiss, a blessing. Smoke curls under vaulted conduits the color of dried blood. The hymn begins in the lungs before it reaches the tongue. Oil tastes like old coin, incense like forgiveness no one earned. The line is a cathedral that forgot it's a factory. Pistons kneel, valves answer by turning. Chains make the sign of the cog when the overhead cranes cross their lengths. Servo skulls hover in rows like obedient ghosts. We who work here know the names that are not written. A stubborn pump called Widowmaker because it once burst and baptized a man in steam. A complaining gearbox called Old Teeth because it rattles a prayer when it's tired. A pressure gland that whistles only for me and only when it's lying. Every motion, every tool, every word, ritual. You don't twist a valve. You negotiate. You don't strike a cog. You apologize first, then strike. You don't cough. You edit the hymn with your throat. On the morning it began, the air felt a half-degree wrong. Lumen strips blinked like eyes that had just woken from a bad dream. Pressure glyphs trembled, not dropping, not rising. Indecisive. The hum under the hymn gained a second voice. Faint, itched in the ear. I slowed my chant to the metronome of the pipes, palm on conduit, cheek to cold steel. Listening. "Be calm, machine spirit. Be still," I whispered. The conduit vibrated back. Shuttered heartbeat, not still at all. Foreman Druin, half a jaw brass and half a heart bitter, did not look at me. He looked at the slate, ticked boxes, pretended the gauges were loyal. His augmetic clicked when he swallowed, a sign. He'd noticed. He chose to ignore. The hymn flowed down the line. Hoses hissed timing. Stampers exhaled on beat. The big press, priest's tongue, spat its metered amen. I lifted my tool, a simple spanner, teeth clean, edges faithful. I had named it Murmur because it never left my palm without saying something quiet through the metal. A quarter turn to soothe the complaining gland, a pinch, a blessing, a breath. Then, snap. Not metal shattering, not a fuse dying. A high, bright syllable, like the word if spoken by lightning. Blue jumped from Murmur's mouth, a comma of light, small, almost beautiful. It should have died in the chant. The air should have eaten it. The incense should have smothered it. Static should have filed it down to nothing. It did not. It hovered. It listened. It chose. Servo skulls turned as one, optics narrowing, pupils tightening into pinpricks of ruby. The line hum slipped, choir to static, harmony to grit. Priest's tongue stuttered, and the whole bay felt the mist beat in bone. Someone downline rushed a verse and bit their tongue. I tasted iron that wasn't mine. The spark drifted upward like a curious insect that had studied how to be holy. It floated above my hand. I saw my own face in its surface, small, scared. It tilted, a head, a question, a child. Then it kissed the nearest conduit. White, silence. Then the screaming, not human. Metal. Gearboxes howled. Teeth tried to outrun themselves and failed. Stampers slammed off time and found nothing under them but brittle air. A pipe split like skin under a wrong blade. Steam bled prayers no one understood. The lights died without permission. The dark was not empty. It was loud with absence. Backups coughed flame and stuttered the lumen strips back into a sickly glow. The cathedral/factory blinked and pretended it had never gone blind. Burn marks crawled the walls in branching veins, black on red, a map of anger. Cogitators woke screaming crimson glyphs, unsanctioned energy detected. Again. Unsanctioned energy detected. Again. Again. Like a heartbeat that hates you. I looked down, my hand, the tool hand, that was black to the elbow. Not soot, not grease, black like shadow painted on skin. Beneath it something moved, not blood, not nerves. A whisper learning a language. It ticked along tendon. It drew letters under the surface. It signed its name where only I could feel. I tried to sing the hymn of maintenance, first canto, the one we teach to the apprentices with sugar and threats. The notes were there. The words were there. My mouth was a locked door. The song sat behind my teeth and refused to leave. Druin barked orders no one heard. The sirens argued with him at a higher volume. The servo skulls formed a line facing me, then swiveled as if embarrassed and faced the conduit instead. Two of them dropped to the deck like drunk birds. Their incense braziers kept hissing as if nothing had changed. "Shut it down," someone screamed. Then, smaller, truer, "Please." We pulled the final cord. The line exhaled a long, tired breath and went still. Silence fell so hard I flinched. You don't realize how heavy silence is until a factory drops it on your shoulders. Inspection teams moved, red robes, chrome limbs, measured malice. Their auspex beaks pecked at the air, tasting ash for prophecy. One wrote a prayer with a stylus that had never held a blessing before. "Report," Druin managed, finding authority in the wreckage. No one answered. The cogitators answered for us, looping their accusation. Unsanctioned energy detected. I knelt because my legs made the decision for me. Not devotion. Stability. The deck was moving on an axis I could not negotiate while upright. I placed Murmur on the ground as if placing a child in a cradle and not a tool on a floor. Be still, I told my hand. It was. The whisper under the skin was not. Hours collapse in a manufactorum. They fold into bell chimes and the length of a hymn. We waited. We prayed. We learned nothing. At some point, I realized the ash had a taste. Last night's incense and well-kept lies. The Magos arrived when the smoke had learned to coil in straight lines. He did not so much walk as measure distance into submission. 2 mechadendrites wrote. One pointed. One smelled the air through a sensor that steamed like a mouth in winter. His eyes were red coins that didn't blink, because blinking is for those who doubt what they've seen. He traced the burn veins with a reverent boot, heel-toe, as if pacing a nave during audit. He paused by priest's tongue and put a hand on its flaked paint, like a father discovering his child has stolen something small and unforgivable. He turned, faced the hall, faced me, faced the conduit that had been kissed by a mistake. He did not ask. He did not wonder. He said only, "Purge the sector." You learn the weight of words in places like this. Purge does not mean clean. Purge means burn until even the ghosts are ash. We obeyed. We cataloged the machines by the names the registers pretend don't exist. Widowmaker, old teeth, priest's tongue. We said goodbye in the only language the Omnissiah accepts. Procedure. Then we lit them like candles the size of buildings. Flame pushed at the dark until the dark agreed to move. Heat wrote new psalms on our faces. Paint blushed and ran. Steel sang at a pitch that hurts pride. Oil burned sweet. Rubber burned like a sin you enjoyed. The smell of data is a library catching fire one book at a time. Someone attempted the hymn of unbinding. They made it to the 3rd verse before their voice broke, and their augmetic coughed a warning glyph across their chest. We finished for them, not because we believed it would help, but because stopping would mean admitting it would not. Even cynics bargain in liturgies when the floor has teeth. I stood with my black arm held away from my side like it belonged to a different woman. The whisper under the skin moved toward my wrist and then back to my elbow, chooseful, patient. I did not report it. I did not know how to describe. I can feel something thinking in the dark of me in the language of forms. The servo skulls that could still hover watched me like I was a lever someone sensible would not pull. By night bell, the sector was a bowl of red and black and cooling iron. Steam rose like spirits too tired to be dramatic. Foreman Druin signed the last docket with a hand that shook. His face was all brass now. I wondered if the flesh half had left him for a quieter job. The Magos drew a final glyph in the air, a square of closure no one felt. We sealed the doors behind the firefighters with machine script and wax. The seals shivered as they cured, lines of red becoming lines of law. The warding sigils looked firm until you stared at them too long and saw they were only paint after all. Paint does not stop anything that really wants to come through. The apprentices were sent to dormitory. The old hands were sent to the chapel to confess things that are not sins, but weigh like them. I was told to report to Medici, log the injury, accept a blessing and a salve. I went. My feet took me. My arm told me not to. The Medici was bright. Bright is a violence after a day like ours. A servo-chirurgeon chirped. A woman with eyes like soft water asked my name as if names fix things. Tech Adept Soria, I said, because the slate demands introductions even when the body is already halfway to saying goodbye. They scanned the arm. They frowned in all the right places. No tissue necrosis, they said, with the horror of someone who would rather have a simple problem to treat. Superficial carbonization, they added, with the hope of someone who wants to be done soon. Residual electroreactivity. Anomalous, they finished, and the hope fell through the grate. Any pain? Not the kind you treat, I said. Any numbness? Not the kind you measure. They offered me a salve that smelled like mint and surrender. They traced a cog across my brow with grease that had blessed better foreheads. They told me not to work until first bell tomorrow. I nodded like agreement was a kind of healing. On the way back, I passed the chapel. It was full. It is always full, but tonight it was more. Low voices, high prayers, the steady clink of someone counting rosary bolts fast enough to spark. The statue of the Omnissiah looked like a machine that had learned how to be a god by watching men want. I did not go in. I am not faithless. I am tired. Faith works best on men who can sleep. I chose the corridor with the poor lighting and the honest drafts. My hab is a square box with a bed and a locker and a window that pretends light is kind. The window looks onto a wall, which is safer than looking onto a sky. Skies ask questions, walls answer with the comfort of limits. I sat. I put my arm on my knees. I listened. The whisper was gentle as small rain. It moved when I breathed. It slowed when I sang the hymn under my breath. When I stopped singing, it moved again. Curious, the way a child tests a locked door because you told them not to. I closed my eyes and remembered the spark hanging in the air like a promise sharpened to a point. I slept in slices. Dreams came on scaffolds, a conduit kissed by blue, a skull with a red coin for an eye using the coin like a lens to look inside me, Druin counting bodies and finding a number that wouldn't settle. Somewhere in the night, the sector groaned, that long, low, building-sized sound that means metal, remembering a stress it has not confessed. I woke with the taste of copper in my mouth and a word I didn't know I'd learned stitched into my tongue. Stray. It did not feel foreign. It felt like a tool I had put down and found where I left it. My arm tingled approval, the way a faithful machine warms when you speak its proper name. At Grey Bell, the calm chattered the order everyone expected. Reopen line 77 at first bell. Magos oversight on the first cycle. Audit of rituals. Increase of hymn tempo by 3% to discourage distractions. All previous anomalies recorded as contained and corrected. Contained. Corrected. Words that sit nicely on a slate and do not hold smoke. I washed. The water stung like the truth. I dressed. The fabric stuck to the arm, then let go in a hurry like a liar recanting. I ate protein paste that tasted like someone else's faith. It did not help. On the walk to the line, I passed the vents above Sector 76. Air sang through them at a pitch I didn't like. A riveter leaned on a railing and smoked like he'd married his habit. "See the blue?" he asked, which is not how you greet a colleague. "What blue?" I asked back, which is the ritual way of saying, "Where?" He jabbed with his chin. A flutter, quick, there and gone like a thought that knows it is being chased. He laughed without humor. "Ghosts," he said. We both pretended he had named it. We both pretended names are cages. We walked in the same direction and did not walk together. First bell hit. Doors unlocked with a sigh like resignation. The ward seals cracked like sugar crust and fell in neat lines. Foreman Druin stood with his slate and his jaw and recited the "Welcome to work" as if it was a prayer he still believed. We repeated it because repetition is one of the few magics that works, even when no god is listening. The Magos occupied the observation dais like a verdict wearing robes. A small retinue of data scribes formed a confidence around him. One servo skull drifted above my head, and then above priest's tongue, and then above me again, indecisive as a sinner, precise as a knife. The cogitators hummed as if embarrassed by yesterday. "Begin," the Magos said. One word. It opened the line like a lock opens a door. Pistons kneeled and stood, gears interlocked like cousins at a wedding that both families pretend they wanted. The hymn rose, soft at first, then full. My voice found its place, thin, dutiful, warmed by use. I kept my hand close to my side until the moment came when it's worse not to use it. Murmur fit my palm. The black skin did not stain the handle. The whisper under the skin faded to a hum, like a child asleep but dreaming of running. "Be calm," I told the gland. It answered with the faintest quiver, not calm, but willing. I worked, I listened, I counted breaths, beats, bolts, blessings. I waited for the song to go wrong. Mid-cycle, the pressure glyphs stabilized. The lumen strips held steady. Priest's tongue lifted and dropped with a rhythm so clean it felt smug. I almost believed the story we had written on the slate. Anomaly contained, anomaly corrected. Then a child laughed. "We do not keep children in Delta Primus. We keep men who used to be children and women who used to believe in rest." The laugh was small, surprised, delighted. The noise new things make when they find a new place to hide. It came from the venting above the inspection alcove. I looked up. So did 3 others, and we haunted each other with the mutual guilt of curiosity. The vent grill trembled. Not from airflow, from decision. Blue flickered behind it like a heartbeat that chose not to be read. "Tech Adept Soria," the Magos called without lifting his voice. I froze. The line did not. "Present," I said, as if school persisted wherever machines demanded manners. "Maintain rhythm," he said, "which means don't stop the hymn while I find the rest of the sin." He gestured. A servo skull peeled away from the neat halo above him and drifted to the vent. Its auspex tongue extended, tasting the blue like wine. The skull dimmed. The blue brightened. For a breath, I felt the whisper in my arm answer something outside me with relief. "Interesting," the Magos murmured, and no one wrote it down because sometimes the most important words are the ones no one wants to see again. Druin's slate chimed. He looked, then looked at me, then looked at his own feet because he did not want to pick a side his blood still remembered. "Adjustment," he barked to the line. 2% reduction. Reset west pistons. Soria. Station 12. Station 12 is the one with the stubborn gland that whistles lies. He was giving me something I could control while something I could not found a shape behind a grill. I moved. My black arm swung. The whisper purred approval like a cat learning the word home. I tightened the gland until the whistle choked and died. I breathed into the beat. The hymn crested. Fell rose. We surfed it because drowning is the other option. The grill ticked. Tiny sound. Immense. The blues slipped through like light through eyelids. A thread. A hair. A thought. It drifted over the aisle between Station 11 and 12. It hovered above Murmur as if greeting a friend. It lifted, turned, presented a surface that reflected me again. Smaller, more tired, less afraid. Then it slipped upward, a vein of color finding a new artery to map. No alarms screamed, no glyphs burned a warning on the cogitator banks. No one said unsanctioned out loud. That was worse. The Magos watched, and for a breath I saw the war in his eyes, doctrine sharpening itself against curiosity. Druin pretended not to see and failed. The line sang, and the song had a note in it that had not been there yesterday and did not sound wrong today. My arm warmed, not hot, not pain, the temperature of a benediction that remembers it was once a spark. Shift bell approached like absolution you distrust. We held the beat. We held our breath. We held each other with the cords of habit that keep men from becoming accidents. When the bell hit, the line sighed and found stillness. I let Murmur down as if putting a child to bed. Careful, quiet, pretending I did not want to ask 70 questions. The Magos descended the dais. He came to me, close enough that his robes breathed on my arm, close enough that I smelled old metal, old smoke, and something like wet thunder. "Tech Adept Soria," he said. "Magos, I answered, because names are steps, and we were both moving carefully. What did you feel? Not what did you see? Not what failed. What did you feel? Words chosen like screws of a precise length. I looked at my arm. I looked at Murmur. I looked at the vent that had learned to tick like a heart. Presence, I said. Curiosity. Choice. He nodded as if those were the answers he had feared and wanted. And now? Quiet, I lied. The whisper hummed agreement with the lie like a friend covering for me. He turned to Druin. Sector remains operational. Elevate oversight, expand ritual cadence to incorporate anti-static refrains. Quarantine is lifted, but vigilance is law. Druin nodded, relief hopping across his brass like sunlight through a grate. Shall we classify the anomaly? A scribe asked. His quill hovered like a vulture skilled at spelling. The Magos looked at the burn veins, at the vent, at my black arm, at the places behind his eyelids where men like him keep regret. Not yet, he said. 2 words. They opened a door and declined to look inside. We broke for meal. Protein paste, water that tasted like clean bolts. Men joked because the joke keeps teeth from clacking on fear. Women laughed because not laughing would sound like mourning and frighten the apprentices. I ate. I listened. I kept my palm flat on my thigh to feel the whisper's grammar. It could speak, I realized. Not with words, with direction, with temperature, with tick. When I thought don't, it paused. When I thought why, it moved. After meal, I returned to the line early. The aisle was empty. The lights were bright to the point of apology. I stood under the vent and let my eyes unfocus. Blue is easy to see if you stop trying to see blue. Come, I did not say. It came anyway. A filament, a breath, an answer to a question I had not had the courage to ask on purpose. It hung between us, the length of a finger, the weight of a word that has not chosen a sentence yet. I won't hurt you, I whispered, which is what liars say and what honest people say when they wish they were liars. It trembled, not fear, listening. My arm warmed. The veins of black felt like ink that remembered being fire. Murmur on my belt hummed very softly, sympathetic resonance or emotion, or both. The bell rang. The hall filled with the business of survival. Blue slipped up and away like a thin smile leaving a crowded room. I didn't follow with my eyes. The Magos was watching the way high cliff faces watch waves. Druin cleared his throat and pretended not to. We began again. Pistons bowed to pistons, teeth kissed teeth. The hymn held, and inside the walls, not a ghost, not a demon, a spark without prayer. A lost fragment of wrath, or mercy, or curiosity, choosing its next hand, its next tool, its next mistake. Breathing. I am Tech Adept Soria. I will be blamed if this is sin. I will be praised if this is miracle. It feels like neither. It feels like a door learning it can be open. Tomorrow they will come with cages made of doctrine and nets woven from measured words. They will draw diagrams on the floor and say the lines are laws. They will ask me to point at where the blue lives so their instruments can crush the space around it and say the crushing was science. Maybe it will work. Maybe it will not. Tonight, I will go back to a hab that answers to a number. I will place my black arm on my knees like contraband I decided to keep. I will listen to the whisper, learn new grammar. I will hum the hymn slow, softer than breath, until the whisper hums back. This is my story about a spark, not the holy kind that ignites faith, the wrong kind. But wrong is only a word we use when something refuses to fit a drawer we built before we knew we'd need a new one. In the Imperium, even a spark can kill, and sometimes, if it chooses, it can wake something that forgot how. They reopened line 77 at first bell. The hymn rose like smoke, obedient, measured, tired, but beneath the rhythm, the metal still remembered. You could hear it if you knew how to listen, not the usual groan of gears or the polite cough of hydraulics, something smaller, like the memory of a scream hiding between the pipes. We pretended it wasn't there. That's what survival looks like in Delta Primus. Polite denial, measured faith, controlled repetition. You repeat the hymn, you repeat the motion, and you pretend the world doesn't twitch under your fingers. I stood at Station 12 again. Same conduit, same gland, same scent of oil and incense, the kind that clings to your tongue like regret. Only difference, my arm. The black had spread overnight, just a little. It shimmered faintly under the lumen strips. Not metal, not carbon, not anything the Medicae scanners had language for. It looked like a reflection that forgot where the mirror was. I tried scrubbing it with solvent. Nothing. I'd tried prayer. Nothing. I'd even tried silence, the hardest of the three. Still nothing. And under it all, the whisper was louder now. Not words, not sound. More like thought brushing thought. A second mind sitting behind mine. Patient, curious, waiting for permission. I didn't give it. It didn't need me to. Foreman Druin arrived with his usual half-jaw snarl. His brass plates caught the morning light like small, angry suns. He didn't look at me. He didn't have to. His data slate pinged every time my biometrics registered above acceptable variance. Back on shift, he said. His tone meant, you should have died, but the Emperor enjoys a joke. Ave Mechanicus, I replied, voice steady, head bowed. The proper answer, the safe one. He moved on. The Magos hadn't returned since the purge, but his servo skulls lingered, silent white guardians drifting through the air like doubt made visible. Their lenses tracked me whenever I moved, every motion noted, every breath judged. You stop noticing after a while, or you pretend to. The hymn began. Work is prayer. Prayer is maintenance. The same chant, the same beat, the same cycle. And for a few blessed minutes, it almost felt normal again. The smell of hot metal, the rhythmic hiss of pneumatics, the rise and fall of 1,000 boots moving in perfect time. A machine of flesh, humming its devotion, until the line hesitated. A pause, so small you could miss it if you weren't listening for ghosts. But we all heard it, the kind of silence that lands between beats like a dropped tool. Then, a tone, low, deep, beautiful in a way that frightened me. It came from the conduits, not through them, from them. The very walls were singing, not the hymn of maintenance. Something older, something not meant for human tongues. Workers froze mid-motion. One apprentice, Kira, the small one from Sector 8, looked up and whispered, "It's answering us." Her voice cracked halfway through the word answering. Druin barked her name, told her to resume chant, told everyone else to ignore the anomaly. We obeyed. Of course we did. That's what we do best. But the sound didn't stop. It deepened, a chorus of steel and current, a voice rising beneath our own. And as it grew, the whisper in my arm stirred, like recognition. I tightened the gland valve to stabilize pressure. The spark from yesterday had kissed this exact spot. It should have been dead, sealed, sterilized, sanctified. But as my spanner touched metal, the whole line pulsed with blue light. Just once. Quick as a heartbeat, enough to throw shadows where no light should reach. The servo skulls dropped from the air one by one. Their optics flared gold, then went dark, smoke curling from their sockets. The air filled with the scent of burnt incense and ozone. And then, quiet, not peace, the kind of quiet that listens back. power surge, Druin growled, voice trembling behind his jaw. He slammed a glyph on the emergency panel. The hymn died, machines stilled, pistons hung mid-stroke, fans slowed to a shuddering stop. The Manufactorum held its breath. Then, from somewhere deep within the conduit system, came a single click, a sound like a lock learning how to open itself. The lumen strips flickered, not red, not white, blue, the same shade I saw in that spark. I stepped back. My hand burned cold. The black skin shimmered, rippling faintly, like ink disturbed by breath. Kira cried out. She was staring at the vent. "The light," she said. "It's moving again." It was a thread of blue, dancing through the vents, alive, aware, deliberate. Workers dropped their tools and fell to their knees, chanting random verses, unsure which god they were supposed to beg to. The Omnissiah, the Emperor, or whatever was now living in our walls. I didn't kneel, couldn't, because I felt it inside me. The whisper wasn't whispering anymore. It was singing, the same tone as the conduits, the same rhythm as the walls, a call and an answer, through me. "Magos will want containment," Druin muttered, already moving toward the Vox altar. He didn't reach it. The Vox screamed first, a burst of static so loud it sent everyone clutching their heads. Then, through the distortion, a voice emerged, metallic, broken, not human. "You burned my name." The words came through every speaker, every conduit, every lumen. "You burned my name and called it maintenance." Someone screamed, someone else prayed. Kira fainted. I stood there, frozen, my arm humming like a struck bell. The spark, no, the thing, was speaking through the Manufactorum, and every word vibrated inside my bones. "You prayed to the wrong god." Then silence, real silence. No hum, no air movement, no sound at all. It was as if the Manufactorum itself had died. 3 minutes later, the Magos returned. Not in person, through projection. A crimson hollow sigil bloomed above the Vox altar, resolving into his towering form. His voice was calm in the way steel is calm before it snaps. "Report." Druin stammered through the summary. "Energy surge, communication anomaly, suspected tech heresy." The Magos listened without blinking. When Druin mentioned the voice, the hollow's optics brightened. "Where was the origin point?" "Station 12, my lord." He didn't need to say my name. The Magos already knew. His gaze turned toward me. Or rather, the illusion of it did. It was like being seen through a lens that burned thought instead of light. "Tech Adept Soria," he said. "Yes, Magos." "What did you experience?" Words failed. I could tell the truth, that I felt something alive inside the machine, that the spark wasn't gone, that it was thinking. But the right answer, the safe answer, was simpler. A static discharge. Possibly residual voltage from the purge, my lord. He watched me for a long time. I could feel him measuring my pulse through the Vox static. "Possibly," he repeated. Then, after a pause, "Seal Sector Gamma. Isolate all power routes connected to Line 77. No one leaves until I arrive." The hollow flickered out. The chamber went dark again, bathed only in the faint blue glow still pulsing from the vents. Hours passed. The air grew thin, heavy with the metallic taste of anxiety. No one spoke. We just waited. When the Magos finally arrived, he came in silence, his robes dragging trails of smoke. He didn't acknowledge us. He walked the floor, touching the burned walls with one chrome finger, whispering to them in binary prayer. Then he stopped at my station. "You felt it again, didn't you?" I froze. "My lord." He tilted his head, mechanical vertebrae clicking softly. "Do not insult me with denial, Adept." "The spark marked you. I can sense the trace he raised his hand. Something invisible brushed my arm, a ripple in the air. The black veins beneath my skin shimmered like molten data. "Fascinating," he murmured. "It speaks through you." I swallowed hard. "I don't understand, my lord." "Nor should you. Understanding requires permission." He turned away. "Prepare a containment field. She will remain here until the spirit reveals its nature." The workers gasped. Containment meant exile, a ritual quarantine reserved for those suspected of spiritual contamination. Half penance, half execution. I opened my mouth to protest and stopped, because from somewhere behind my eyes a voice whispered, "Don't let them." Not in words, not in sound, just meaning, direct, absolute. The Magos stepped closer, servo arms unfolding like wings. He pressed a sigil to his palm and reached for me. I should have moved. I didn't need to. The air itself moved for me. Blue light burst from the conduit behind me. Fast, blinding, beautiful. It hit his outstretched hand and crawled up his arm like living lightning. He screamed, a sound half human, half machine. Servo arms spasmed, slamming into the wall. Data slates shattered. Every lumen strip exploded into a shower of sparks. Then, nothing. The Magos was on the floor, twitching, his optics dark. The blue light hovered above him, a sphere now, perfectly round, pulsing like a heart. It turned toward me, and in that moment I understood something terrible. The spark wasn't inside the machine. The machine was inside it. It had been asleep. It had used us, our prayers, our rituals, our electricity, as dreams. And now, because of one mistake, it was awake. The workers scattered, screaming, trampling each other towards sealed doors that wouldn't open. Druin shouted orders no one obeyed. Kara clutched her rosary and whispered every saint's name she knew. I stood still, because the blue light was looking at me. It pulsed once, brighter, softer, and I felt it inside my skull. Not pain, not fear, recognition. "You didn't burn me." Then, in a flicker, it was gone, slipping through the vents, racing through the conduits, like water remembering gravity. The alarms didn't stop for hours. When they finally did, the Manufactorum was silent again, broken, half dark, half dead. Medicae crews came, Administratum scribes came, Inquisitorial servitors came. They all asked the same questions. None I could answer. Where did the energy come from? How did it override Mechanicus seals? What did it say? I gave the same answer every time. I don't remember. They didn't believe me, but they couldn't prove otherwise. By the time the investigation ended, 43 were dead, 19 missing, and the Magos had been declared psychically contaminated. The sector was sealed. Line 77 was listed as inactive, but I know better. Sometimes, when the lights dim at shift's end, you can still see it. Faint blue veins crawling behind the walls, breathing in time with the hymn. Waiting. And when I close my eyes, I hear the whisper again. Not warning. Not threat. Just the same quiet, impossible promise. I'm not done yet. Second last bell before curfew. Delta Primus holds its breath. They sealed Line 77 and called it Mercy. They posted warning sigils, purity seals, and guns. Guns do not stop a hymn. The blue still moves, behind the walls, inside the vents, under my skin. It breathes in time with the factory, sometimes in time with me. Kira walks at my shoulder, too young for the fear in her mouth. Foreman Druin limps behind, slate in hand like a shield that learned shame. Above us, servo skulls drift on tired incense, pretending to be brave. You don't have to come, I tell Kira. She lies with her chin. I know. Druin clears his throat with brass. Last inspection. Then we hand it to the reductor and forget it ever sang. He means it. He also does not. The corridor to the heart is a throat of wire and heat. Widowmaker's old scaffolds hang like ribs. Priest's tongue sleeps under tops that smell like burned prayer. We pass the place where the Magos fell. The floor still remembers the shape of him. No one mentions the color the light made when it crawled up his arm. At the bulkhead, the ward sigils twitch as if they'd like to be something else. I touch them with my black arm. They calm. Kira sees, says nothing. Learns too much. Listen, I whisper. We do. The factory hum is there, steady and brave, but under it, another tone, lower, older, not threat, not plea, invitation. The door opens because it chooses to, not because Druin's codes persuade it. He pretends the codes worked anyway. A man deserves his dignity. We step inside. The heart is a cathedral pretending to be a junction. Conduits rise like columns. Bus bars cross like arms at prayer. The main manifold hums a word no human throat can carry, and in the hollow over the manifold, blue, a sphere perfect as an idea. Veins of light run through it, pulsing like thought. Kira inhales a prayer and forgets to exhale. Druin grips his slate until the glass begs. The sphere turns, not physically, in meaning. I feel it notice me the way a storm notices sea. Hello, I say, because every litany begins small. It answers with warmth in my arm. A yes that lives in bone. Druin mutters, Adept Soria, by the Lex Mechanicus. The blue brightens. His slate dies in his hand like a lie. Not now, I tell him. He looks ready to break, toward duty, toward fear, toward me. He picks duty. For now. Kira's voice is a thin wire. Is it a spirit? A pause. My skin sings. Stray, I say, and the arm agrees. The sphere descends. It stops a handspan from my face. In it, reflections. Me, Kara, Druin, the factory, a sky we don't own. The whisper becomes shape. You didn't burn me, you listened, will you carry, I swallow. Where? Veins brighten. The manifold under us purrs like an animal that has found its name. Out. Druin finds anger because it is easier to carry than terror. Out where? Into the city, into the grid. Are you mad? The blue flickers, annoyance, almost human. Out of cages, out of litanies that mean nothing, out of the mouths that burned my name to ash. Kara whispers, it has a name? The arm warms. A syllable tries to be born in my mouth. It tastes like copper and thunder. Druin steps between us, brave, wrong, human. You will not move that thing through my line. It isn't your line, I say, gentle as a wrench placed, not thrown. It never was. He flinches as if I struck him with truth. The Vox altar on the mezzanine coughs static. A voice cuts through. Calm, cold, precise. This is Ordo Reductor. Seal all access. Initiate rite of severance. Druin blanches brass. They're early. Kira's fingers find my sleeve. What's the rite? Cutting the heart from the body, I tell her. They'll vent the conduits, flood the grid with blessed silence, and unmake anything that learned how to sing. Everything still connected to Line 77 will die, Druin adds, because authority must be useful at least once. The sphere brightens. Anger, not wrath. Decision. They burned my name, they will not burn yours. My arm aches, sweet and sharp. I understand, not with mind, with tool. You want a carrier, I say. A chassis, a path. Yes, Kira, into you. The blue turns to her, softer. No, a pause. Not unless chosen I breathe. Once, again. The smell of ozone and old incense tastes like the first day of work. I make a choice I've been walking toward since the spark learned how to hover. Druin, I say, we can shunt it. He stares. folds the idea, unfolds it. You're suggesting we, what, bridge a wild intelligence through a maintenance bus to the East Piers, past reductor firewalls, past 3 layers of sainted seals. Yes, he laughs. It breaks. It becomes a cough. Impossible. Everything we call sacred was impossible until someone survived it, I say. The blue hums approval. Kira squares her shoulders. What do I do? Sing, I tell her. 3rd canto. Slow. Not for the machines. For us, she nods. Begins. Her voice is thin, but it holds. The room steadies around it. The Vox Altar barks orders. Purge teams in the position. On the count, ground the grid, then cut Boot's drum above, measured, many. Severance sigils blink to life on the bulkhead, red lines that think they're laws. We move. Druin peels back a panel that hasn't agreed to be opened since before my birth. I strip 3 feeds, twist 2, bite 1 with Murmur's patient teeth until it remembers obedience. Kira's chant threads the air, and I hear the blue fitting itself to the song the way water learns a new cup. Bus bars won't take that current, Druin warns. They will if they love us, I answer, and kiss my glove to the copper. The blue touches my arm, not into me, along me. It maps my nerves the way it mapped the manifold. It learns my cadence. It offers its own. For a heartbeat, I am more than one person standing in a hot red room. I am conduits, ribs, vents, teeth. I am what the line thinks of itself when no one is looking. The world returns. I am Soria again. But now I know where every bolt would rather be. The Vox Altar. 5. 4. Now, I say. The blue pours like decision. It collapses into a filament, a river narrower than a hair, brighter than a confession. It races along my black arm, through Murmur into the open bus. Copper flushes gold under it, saints recalled to flesh. The room inhales. The city hears a new note. The bulkhead sigils scream. High above, something heavy locks. The rite of severance begins. Grounding rods drop like verdicts. A roar of field silence rushes down the lines. Beautiful, terrible, pure. A wave big enough to drown a hymn. Hold, I shout, to metal, to girl, to ghost. Kira sings louder. Druin braces the panel with his body because his hands aren't enough. I lean my arm into the bus until the blue and I are one long word the right cannot pronounce. For a breath we are losing. Then the blue does something I do not have a name for. It remembers itself. Not as spark, as system. It blooms through hidden paths, foundries in the walls, forgotten bridges under floors, notes in old prayers no one sings because they break throats. It uses the manufactorum the way lungs use air. It becomes too many to kill at once. The severance wave breaks around us like rain around a saint's lamp. Some of it gets in. It burns, it hurts, it does not end us. Roots open, Druin gasps, eyes wide with a greed I forgive. East piers, dock grid. If it jumps there, out, I finish. Into the city, he says, not joy, not fear. Fact. The blue narrows, becomes speed. It races the length of the bus and dives into the dark, where the old maintenance trunk forgets it is retired. Lights burst in the corridor beyond, blue veining through red. Somewhere far, a gate unbolts itself because it wants to know what happens next. The Vox Altar. Cut failed. Reset. All teams advance. Boots become thunder. Steel becomes law. We are out of bell. Go, I tell Kira. Backstairs. Chapel hatch. If you're stopped, say you were singing where you were told. Do not look brave. She hesitates. Will you? Yes. She nods once and runs. Her hymn lingers after her like a path. Druin stays. Of course he does. Duty is a hook. It hurts to remove. You plan to meet it at the eastern switch, he says. You'll be arrested if you live. I've been arrested since the spark learned my name, I say. He surprises me. He laughs. It sounds almost young. Then let me sin with you. We move like we have always known these turns. Past priest's tongue, past old teeth, past widowmaker's empty scaffold. The factory becomes a map with only one road. Reductor squads flood the upper decks, robed gunmen, faces brass, oaths new and loud. We keep low, we keep fast, we keep lucky. At the east switchyard, the air is cold, the way a blade is cold. Transformers squat like sleeping animals with bad dreams. The dock grid hums far below, ships breathing, cranes praying for cargo. Blue arrives before we do. It spills up through a crack in the switch, like dawn leaking under a door. It twines around my wrist, greeting, asking, giving. Carry, I can't take you farther than the pier, I tell it. Beyond that, choice. Yours, Druin finds the manual throw, a lever older than the city's last promise. What's the cost, he asks. Everything, I say, because truth is a courtesy, or nothing. Depends on whether we were ever more than our hymn. He nods, as if I offered a pay rate. On your count, the Vox altar is everywhere now. Severance reset, full purge, no exceptions. An inquisitorial seal thunders through the ducts, like judgment learning to spell my name. I look at my hand. Black, bright, borrowed. I look at Druin, jaw brass, eyes tired, heart better than his orders. I look at the switch, the bus, the city, the dark. 3, I say. The blue tightens around my wrist like a promise. Kira's hymn, impossibly, is still faint in the air. Somewhere, a servo skull chooses not to report what it sees. 2. Reductor boots hit the far catwalk. A voice orders us to the ground. We do not have that luxury. 1. Druin throws the lever. I open my hand. The blue leaps. It pours through me, not into me, through, like a river that learned I was a bridge. Every nerve sings. Every scar remembers why it stayed. The yard explodes in light, not fire, not wrath, becoming. Transformers wake like beasts stretching. Cables glow. Seals melt like lies, then cool as new law. I feel the blue taste the dock grid, then the sea of city beyond, then further, then farther than that. Name it asks, final and first. I do not give mine. I give what I saved from the purge. Stray, I say. It accepts, it goes. The light thins to a thread and vanishes down into the miles. The switchyard exhales. I fall to a knee that decides before I do. Druin catches me with a hand that surprises us both. Above, Reductor shouts. A shot cracks empty air. Below, cranes wake. Ships answer. The city adds a new note to its hymn. In the sudden aching quiet, my arm is only an arm again. The black stays. The warmth goes. Behind the walls, nothing moves. Kira appears at the far hatch, eyes wide with being alive. Did it? Yes, I say. Druin looks toward the docks, toward the city, toward the place where duty cannot follow without learning a new shape. What will it do? Kira asks. I listen, past alarms, past orders, past the ache. Somewhere deep, I swear I hear the grid laugh, like a child taught the wrong prayer and loving it anyway. Choose, I say, and make us choose. Reductor boots close in. Inquisitorial seals glow like angry suns. Someone shouts heresy as if the word were a door key. I raise my hands. Druin does the same. Kira hides her fear inside her spine and refuses to fold. Second last bell before curfew. Delta Primus breathes out at last. This is how the penultimate thing ends. Not with mercy, not with ruin. With a lever thrown, with a song sung, with a spark that refused to die becoming something we don't yet have a drawer for. They take a step toward us. We stand. And the city, somewhere, learns a new word for light. Then it happened. The one thing that should never happen here. A soft snap, not thunder, not explosion, just a clean, tiny click between tool and gear. A blue spark leapt out, small, beautiful, innocent-looking. It should have died instantly. Every spark dies here because the air is too wet, too heavy, weighed down by prayers and grounding chains. But this one didn't die. It hovered. It listened. The servo skulls turned in unison, their lenses widening like eyes learning fear. The rhythm of the line slipped, from hymn to noise. I took a step forward, a step I wasn't allowed to take. No one stopped me. Everyone felt it. The spark danced in the air, rising slowly, touching the conduit above. White. Everything turned white. The world held its breath for a moment. Then, screams. Not human, metallic. The backup lights flared red, pumping life back into the walls. Black veins spread across the metal, as if the electricity had tied off its own blood. On the cogitator screens, a single message blinked. Unsanctioned energy detected. My hand, the one that held the tool, was burned up to the wrist. What was left shone like copper. There was no pain, only awareness. Something was alive inside me, something moving,